Welcome, Climate Viewers. This is Jim Lee from ClimateViewer News. Today we're going to talk about Bill Gates funding a chemical cloud to cover the sky. Now, this is something I've covered since 2013, and apparently it's in the mainstream media as we speak, so I figured I'd bring it up. And we're going to go through why that's a monumentally bad idea, why geoengineering is already happening, and what role does volcanoes play in all of this? Have you noticed it getting cooler lately? Well, there's a reason for that. Several reasons for that. So we're going to dig right into this. A lot of explanation. Going to do it very quickly. I hope you all, if you can't keep up, we'll go back and watch this again. I want to ask you a question. What do you think about geoengineering? Do you think that climate change is so dire that we're all going to die, and the only solution, because people won't curb their carbon emissions, is to coat the sky in chemicals, to block out sunlight? Do you think that's a good idea? Please leave me a comment. I'd love to hear from you. I think it's a monumentally bad idea. In fact, I believe the entire process should be banned. And ironically, the article in the mainstream media actually has a pretty good video that tells both sides of this. So let's dig right into that. And I'd like to remind everybody that please, hit that subscribe button if you're new here. If you haven't ever been to my channel, it's Jim Lee Climate Viewer. If you don't put Climate Viewer in the search bar when you're looking for me, you will find an artist who does comic books. Just a heads up on that. I am very censored and very pushed to the back and all of that stuff. So it's pretty hard to find my channel if you don't type in the right thing. But there's the link anyway. And everything that I do is completely open source and free of charge. And I only ask that, I'd like to thank my patrons at patreon.com/climateviewer. And you can give a one-time donation at paypal.me/climateviewer. So let's dig right into the nuts and butts of what's going on today. This article is from CNBC.com. This Bill Gates funded chemical cloud could help stop global warming. Yeah. So they got a great video here, and I'm debating whether or not to actually play the whole thing. But basically, they tell both sides of the story. No, don't play the video, because Lord knows they'll probably give me a copyright strike. Believer girl, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for that. Just pure insanity. What they're discussing here. Basically, this idea started back in 1994 with the eruption of Mount Pinatubo. And scientists, geoengineering's had a history long before that, but they saw this volcano erupt and it cooled the planet. And they said, what if we were to do that? I mean, that would be a great idea. Fires burning across the Amazon rainforest have renewed the debate about solutions for climate change. Bill Gates is backing the first high-altitude experiment of one radical approach called solar geoengineering. Been renamed many times, but now they've come full circle back to solar geoengineering. Originally called geoengineering, then called climate engineering, then called climate intervention, and now we're back to just solar geoengineering, or stratospheric aerosol injection, or just, creating a sunscreen in the sky, mimicking volcanoes, creating artificial volcanoes using many different things. Let's see, pipes, pumps, inflatable balloons, you name it, they've come up with an idea for it, using sulfur dioxide, using diamond dust, using calcium carbonate. Many different chemicals have been discussed, but the idea is all the ideas are bad. So, this is a very short little article on it that's basically saying, watch the article, but great book side argument to this. A perfect moral storm, the ethical tragedy of climate change. And the guy says, these consequences might be horrific. They might involve things like mass famine, mass flooding, droughts of kinds that will affect very large populations, and that it would eradicate the blue sky. Well, that's already happened, so I don't understand why that's not being talked about at all in here. Oh, I understand perfectly well. But regardless, this whole idea, this is September 7th, 2019, so relatively recently. This is Jim Lee's website, October 9th, 2013, when Bill Gates started what he calls FICER, the Fund for Innovative Climate and Energy Research. So all your whether are belong to me. If you're not a gamer, you won't get the quote. I've had so many people, and peace be with you too. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Bill Gates has been at this for a very long time, and basically he's come up with two people that, he is decided we're going to hand out his money. And it's Ken Calder and David Keith. So these two guys, if you don't know their names, they're the ones who basically, were in charge of FICER, doling out the money to all of these authors that were writing papers about geoengineering. So on this side, these are the scientists who are writing the papers, and on the other side, these are the people funding it. And you see right here, Fund for Innovative Climate and Energy Research, that's Bill Gates's little dot. It pales in comparison to the National Science Foundation. So if you want to know who's paying for this geoengineering, who's doing the studies, it's NASA, the European Commission, EPSRC and NERC in the UK, the Royal Society, and of course, U.S. Department of Energy. There's a whole bunch more here. NCAR, NOAA, but there's Bill Gates right there, FICER. So if you don't know what FICER is, now you do, and knowing is half the battle. So this is not a new idea of Bill Gates funding geoengineering studies, but back then, Bill said that he would certainly not ever fund a field test. That's what the 360 on all this is. Bill Gates is now actually going to fund an actual test of geoengineering, and that test is right here. It's called the Stratospheric Controlled Perturbation Experiment. David Keith. I just showed you his picture. There's David Keith over here on the side. He's the one in charge of ScopeX. And David Keith's sun dimming experiment, ScopeX, possibly coming spring 2019. Has not happened yet. Been a whole lot of outrage over this idea. So it's still on hold. But basically, this again is a Bill Gates idea, the Strato Cruiser. Bill Gates and company had something called the Strato Shield. I think I might even have it on the same article. He also talked about steering hurricanes, but in fact, I will take a brief moment and I will hit that search button and I will type in Strato Shield just so I can show it to you. The Strato Shield hose to the sky could reverse global warming. Not. And this is October 10th, 2013 as well. And what you see right here is the idea. Intellectual Ventures Lab, a Microsoft company, shell company, talked about putting this hose to the sky to spray these chemicals. Well, how different is that than what David Keith's Strato Cruiser, Strato Shield, Strato Cruiser, ScopeX is the Strato Cruiser flight system. And the idea is basically that, I had it in the article. Of course I do. That they would take this balloon and fly the machine up that then would spray chemicals out to test out geoengineering. And geoengineering has to occur in the stratosphere. So we're talking at least 32,000 feet or higher. And generally, planes don't fly that high. So the geoengineering that we're seeing coming from planes happens in the troposphere. That's where we live. That's near the ground. Just so that people are all on the same page here. But let's go a little further on this. Okay, so he's funding David Keith. David Keith said, that basically geoengineering will kill people. You can't make this up. If you go to my geoengineering page by simply clicking geoengineering on the menu up here, I've got it highlighted right here, and you can hear it for yourself.
This is a really important moral point. So if I made a decision, or
let me change my input. I always forget to do this. Let's see if we get a better one on this. How about now?
It's a collective decision to do a geoengineering program, and you put, say, the kind of program I think makes more sense to put about 1 million tons a year in, but let's say, you might end up killing many tens of thousands of people a year as a direct result of that decision. I think that has moral consequences. I don't sweep it under the rug. So this is a case where I take this much differently from Alan and think it's a much more serious issue. Now, it's true that as part of doing that, you would hope that the overall benefits of human mortality would be so that you would save many, many more people than that. This is a really important moral point. So if I made a decision, or there was a collective decision to do a geoengineering program, and you put, say, the kind of program I think makes more sense to put about 1 million tons a year in, but let's say, you might end up killing many tens of thousands of people a year as a direct result of that decision.
So, David Keith knows that what he's proposing will kill people. This is a fact. Geoengineering, as they are proposing it, will kill, as he put it, many tens of thousands of people. So they're basically saying, well, of course, this outweighs the danger of climate change. Of course, it outweighs the danger of climate change. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this because it's going to kill people. But regardless, that doesn't take into account, all of the reasons why it's a bad idea. Okay. So what we have here, where were we? I jumped pages. So down here at the bottom of the ScopeX page, I included something by Alan Robach, the guy who was sitting across from him. And what did Alan Robach do? At the weather modification conference I attended, he put out a paper called Stratospheric Sulfur Geoengineering, right here. Stratospheric Sulfur Geoengineering Benefits and Risks. And he came up with a grand total of 6 benefits and 27 bad ideas, bad reasons to do this. And, drought in Africa and Asia, screw up ecology with more diffuse radiation, ozone depletion, continued ocean acidification, may not stop ice sheets from melting, impacts on tropospheric chemistry, rapid warming if stopped, human impacts, less solar electricity generation, degrade passive solar heating, effects on airplanes flying in the stratosphere, effects on electrical properties of the atmosphere, effect of satellite remote sensing. Terrestrial astronomy will be a thing of the past come 2050, according to many articles, including BBC. More sunburn. Ouch. Environmental impact of implementation, whiter skies. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Affects stargazing. Yeah, you won't be able to see the stars. My daughter and her kids will not be able to see the stars if this goes through. That's a serious problem for me. Unknowns. We're going to talk about those at the end of this video because volcanic eruption, the greatest unknown in this whole variable. And then unexpected consequences. Governance cannot stop effects quickly. Commercial control. God forbid a business gets their hands on this. Whose hands on the thermostat? That's the biggest question of all. Who gets to decide what the temperature of the planet is? They won't be elected officials, and even if they are, they'll be bought and paid for quicker than they can sit down in the seat. Societal disruption, conflict between countries. What if China were to geoengineer and we didn't give them permission or agree to it? We could have war over this sort of thing. I've got several articles on ClimateViewer.com. If you go to the front page right now, you'll see that there are articles about that very thing. Geoengineering may cause World War III. And very prominent scientists are saying this. So it's not just a joke, okay? But these are the problems that we have right now, that we're looking at. Conflicts with current treaties, namely the NMOD treaty, and that's one that I talk a lot about. Anybody who's heard about my Environmental Modification Accountability Act knows that already. Moral hazard, the prospect of it working could reduce the drive for mitigation. Meaning, if we do geoengineering, hell, people won't stop polluting. Because we've put a Band-Aid on it, a chemical Band-Aid that took away the stars and made, just so many issues with this. So, that's Alan Robach, who I showed you right here. There's Alan Robach. He was sitting across from David Keith. And Alan Robach is right here, one of the second largest to Ken Caldera in writing papers about geoengineering. And my opinion of Alan Robach has changed a lot over the years because I do see him starting to lean more towards the cautious side than the lobbyist side. So I think it was David Keith that was like, in an email to me, was like, I will help you lobby for the Environmental Modification Accountability Act. And I think that he took a lot of, giggles at my infographic here. But regardless, that's pretty funny stuff. Anyway, we're moving along. So, anyway, I kind of cover this in this one right here, the Green New Deal Agenda 2030, technocracy and geoengineering, if you want to know more about that. But let's move along. So one of the things he said was whiter skies. Well, that's already happening. Airline traffic may help create an icy haze that's brightening U.S. skies, December 15th, 2015. This was Chuck Long from NOAA's Earth System Research Lab. They have now since deleted this article. You know how things bees. So, of course, I backed it up many times. So it'll never go away. But, Chuck Long from CRES, CRES researcher at NOAA's Earth System Research Lab, Global Monitoring Division. He said, I'm talking about a subvisual contrail-generated haze of ice, which we do not classify as a cloud, but gives a blue sky a more whitish tint. So jet aircraft are already whitening the sky. What do they call this? They call this accidental geoengineering. So they don't want to say that we're already geoengineering. They don't want to admit what's going on already. And they're still talking about all of this, Bill Gates funded chemical cloud crap as if it's, something in the future, nothing to see today. We're not really doing anything about the geoengineering going on today. So let's just look at that a little bit. So I actually did an article about that, which I just freaking closed. No, I didn't. Accidental geoengineering with ship tracks and contrails. Now, this is a very lengthy article. I originally wrote this for climatex.mit.edu. It became the most shared article on ClimateX, and then they deleted it. So it got well over 5,000 shares, and second place on their entire website was like 900 or 1,000 shares. So obviously it created a very big stink when I posted this, and it was at climatex.mit.edu. And I posted that March 22nd, 2018. But I go through all of the, actual references. And this is a very lengthy, written for the scientists, in your face paper on accidental geoengineering and how it's not an accident anymore. especially when you've got scientists saying we would like more contrail-induced cirrus clouds during the day and none by night, and that we can achieve cooling the planet. Who did that? Oh, we got a new subscriber. Thank you very much, Granny. This can be achieved by if seeding is limited to high latitude winters or nighttime seeding. Climate change and geoengineering, artificially cooling planet Earth by thinning cirrus clouds. So they're doing all of these different experiments on the thing. Jet biofuel enlisted for contrail control. You just can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is the plan. You know, we're going to control these clouds to cool the planet. But they, you know, nothing to see here. This is March 5th, 2013. I went and spoke at the EPA in 2015 about this plan. And then, you know, 2017, NGOs from around the world are now slamming the plan to use biofuels to cool the planet. But regardless, this accidental geoengineering from airplanes really isn't an accident anymore. It may have been an accident for quite some time. It no longer is. Similarly, the other big accidental geoengineering program going on, here's MIT technology review. We're about to kill a massive accidental experiment in reducing global warming. A forthcoming UN regulation will slash shipping industry pollution, but may also speed up climate change. Because if you haven't heard of ship tracks, you probably should. Ship tracks make contrails and chemtrails, as most people call them, look tiny in comparison. It's like comparing, cigarette smoke to the Blue Angels, okay? These are, in some cases, 10, 20, 30, 40 miles wide and thousands of miles long. And they coalesce to make marine stratocumulus, which coat the entire freaking ocean. So ship tracks, big bad thing, also considered an accidental experiment in reducing global warming, or, as they more easily put it right here, accidental geoengineering. Hold on, let me turn my phone off. That's a Pantera plane. That's totally going to get me a strike. Hey, baby, I'm live doing a YouTube video. Can I call you back? What'd you say?
Yes, you can. Of course, call me back.
Okay. Love you, baby. All right, let me put the old phone on mute. The things, all of the steps one must take in order to make a crappy YouTube production. All right, that thing's silent. All right, so back to the story. We're almost done. So they've got the chemtrails in the sky. They got, that's a Planet Caravan by Pantera as my ringtone. Oh, it's just so beautiful. I wish it would ring again. But it won't because I muted it. Anyway, Pantera forever. I was in a band in high school, and I used to sing Philip Anselmo on stage in a metal band. I can do it like none other than he, the great one. But anyway, totally sidetracked now. No more talk of Pantera. Back to geoengineering. Serious issues here today. So we're talking about Frank. Quite frankly, he's a good friend of mine. He's a big Pantera fan also. But anyway, so if you want to see these ship tracks, you can do that as well. Where's it at? I've got a nice little photo from ClimateViewer 3D right up here. And I may even have a link. Well, that's January 30th, 2013. You can still bring that up to this day. So I can literally go over here to Satellites and Images, go to NASA Visual, go to the 367 band, which highlights them, and then go to wrong button, and then go to the very top, and we'll set it to, what is it, 2013, January 13, boom. And we can actually see the exact same photo. And those are the ship tracks right there. Now, the thing about this 367 band, which is absolutely amazing, is it highlights the ship tracks even in the cloud banks, as you can see here. So even the invisible ship tracks show up. Pretty amazing little tool right there in ClimateViewer 3D. That's Modus Terra Corrected Reflectance Bands 367, the ship track finder, is like what I like to call it. But these are massive chemtrails. Of course, it's just an accidental experiment in reducing global warming caused by bunker fuel from international shipping. But, you know, nothing to see here. It's not like it's covering the majority of the ocean and sucking up a lot of water vapor that would end up, you know, coming to California. Oh, wait, there's like no clouds right here because they've all been, you know, attached right over there. Crypto Pirate, love you, mean it. 1776. I was born 1976. I'm a bicentennial baby. Hell yeah, brother. Sepultura, Chaos AD. I'm not gonna look at chat. Chat, leave me alone. You guys, and Tool is my personal favorite. Just so we're all clear, Tool is very top tier. They just put out a new album after like 10 years, 13 years. God, I love Tool. You know, and anything else Maynard singing it. You guys are really getting me off the subject here. So the reason I came over here to climateviewer.org/3D was to show you volcanic eruptions. Now you can track these as well. They're under alerts and weather, and go to fires and volcanoes, and they're right here. And I'll blow that up really big so you guys can see it. Go to alerts and weather, and then go to right here, fires and volcanoes, and you'll see active volcanoes and eruptions this week. And this is from the Smithsonian Volcanic Global Volcanism thing. Anyway, you can go to these and you can click on them, and they'll tell you, you know, which volcanoes are erupting, when they erupted, what their current situation is. This is one of the big problems with geoengineering, is that one of the unknowns that Alan Robach is talking about is we don't know when these volcanoes are going to go off. And when big volcanoes like Pinatubo go off, they have a really big effect on the environment. Now, let's say, Tool song, Pneumonia, Enema, you know, just any of those songs, any of the Tool albums are great. My God, I could do a whole video just about metal. Okay, don't get me started. Oh my God. So this happens. Extinct Russian volcano has woken up and could unleash Pompeii-sized eruption, scientists warn in June 6, 2019. Oh, wait, then it happened when this big boy decided to blow up. And this is in Russia. It's a stratovolcano, and it blew its top June 25th. So they were, that was June 6th, June 25th. It had a really big explosion. Ash rose 2 kilometers. Still not that big, but wait for it. Then the monster happened. Eruption of Russian volcano caused colorful skies. This is dated September 17th, 2019. So we're talking 2 days ago. This sucker literally blew 70,000 feet into the air. This one right here also says 2 kilometers, 1.2 miles in the sky. But ash did rise into the stratosphere about 11 to 13 kilometers, 6 to 8 miles high. Got a couple different sources on this, but regardless, here's the other one. Monster eruption at Kamchatka ash fired up to 70,000 feet, 21.3 kilometers. VEI 5/6 confirmed global cooling. And this is something that's not going away anytime soon. Whenever, and I've known this for quite some time, and if you're familiar with the electric universe or the global cooling trends that are coming at all, and you'll see, down here, NASA predicts next solar cycle will be lowest in 200 years. Dalton minimum levels plus implications. If you watch my friend David Devine at Adapt 2030 or Ice Age Farmer or anybody who is really up to date on real climate change, the real climate change is that the sun is going to sleep. And when the sun goes to sleep, it's going to weaken our ionosphere. When we have a weakened ionosphere, more cosmic rays come into the atmosphere. They penetrate lower into the atmosphere. The ionosphere works as like a shield, shields up in Star Trek. And it keeps these galactic cosmic rays from penetrating down to the troposphere, let alone into the ground. But when we have a solar minimum, like we are currently in, we have a solar minimums and maximums are on average a 13-year cycle where it's maximum, and then 6 years later it's minimum, and then 7 years later it's maximum, and the curve continues. Well, right now we're going into a grand solar minimum, meaning that it's going to dip really low. And when that happens, our shields will effectively be down. Well, what happens when our shields are down? Well, if you do a little research on this, turns out a website called Jupiter's Dance, they say basically that whenever there are low sunspot activity and a weakened ionosphere, there are larger earthquakes and more of them. This paper says explosive volcanic eruptions triggered by cosmic rays, volcano as a bubble chamber, June 2011. And has a bunch of citations. Let's see, there's 5 citations, 44 references, and 11,000 reads. No, I don't want to pay for your wall. Do cosmic rays trigger earthquakes, volcanic eruptions? This is something that is really an unknown to the majority, especially the climate change scientist world, who are paid to say exactly what the mainstream want them to say. But regardless, this is where we're at. This is the greatest concern that I see going forward, is that we're going to have more volcanic activity. If we were to deploy geoengineering, then God forbid we're going to have a serious freaking problem on our hands, because we have 5-6 volcanoes erupt, and boom, we've already started cooling the planet. Now we have the volcanoes added to that. We literally end up like Snowpiercer, the movie, and that would be a very bad thing. So I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. My boy Mike Morales should be on by now. If you guys are bored and want something else to do, hop on over there. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, donate if you can. Sharing is caring, and with information comes power, and with power comes great responsibility. So please remember to, I said a lot in this video. Feel free to go back over it. Remember, I asked a question. How do you feel about geoengineering? Do you think it's a good idea? Do you think climate change is such a dire situation that we need to spray a sunscreen in the sky, make artificial volcanoes? Let me know in the comments. And, of course, I always expect that you attack ideas, not people. Love you, mean it.
If this video resonates with you, leave me a comment, because I love hearing from y'all. First time here, be sure to subscribe and click the bell. The bell doesn't always work, so come to ClimateViewer.com and sign up for our newsletter. Remember, it would be impossible for me to do this without your support, so please join my Patreon or buy me a coffee on PayPal. And always, attack ideas, not people.
Kids are impressionable. That's why here at this station, we watch the programs and commercials your child watches carefully. He may see bad guys, but not in the role of heroes. And he'll learn that crime doesn't pay. Because your child's welfare is our concern, too. That's part of our code.
Better than anything you can get without a prescription. Anything. It's the best.
I can do